I never thought I'd be the guy writing in a subreddit about how I found out my wife cheated right before our wedding. Honestly, the whole thing still feels like some bad movie I'm stuck in. I want to tell someone because I'm so damn angry, confused, and hurt that I don't even know where to start. Maybe it's the shock, maybe it's the betrayal, whatever it is, I need to get this off my chest. We've been together for 4 years. I thought she was the one. I mean, I really did. She was smart, funny, ambitious. We'd planned a simple wedding, just close friends and family. I was nervous as hell the morning of, but I'd never doubted her loyalty. That was until I got a message from her boss's wife. Yeah, Michael's wife. She sent me a screenshot of a hotel receipt, a photo of my wife and Michael, their names and the date clearly visible, cuddled up in what looked like a pretty expensive hotel room. I stared at the phone in disbelief, my stomach twisting painfully. My palms went slick. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I kept staring at the photo, trying to process what I was seeing. How long had this been going on? Had they been sneaking around for weeks, months? The message from Michael's wife was straightforward. Thought you should know what your wife was up to before your wedding. Hope you're not too blind to see what's been going on. That moment, everything around me slowed down. I remembered all her little lies, the late nights, the odd phone calls she always brushed off. I'd been so damn blind, so trusting. Now with that picture burned into my brain, I saw everything in a new light. Her late-night work trips, her nervous glances when she thought I wasn't looking, the quick texts she'd hide in her purse. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the photo again. Her face in that moment, half sneered, half pleased, like she was getting away with something big. I felt like a fool. How could I have missed all these signs? Her phone buzzed a dozen times that night, but I didn't answer. I couldn't. The next morning I sat there, staring at the same image on my phone, feeling my stomach churn. I kept asking myself, what else has she lied about? What else do I know? The worst part wasn't just that she cheated. It was that she did it so openly, so shamelessly right before our wedding, like she didn't even care if I found out. I felt the heat rise in my chest, a mixture of rage and heartbreak. This wasn't just about betrayal, it was about being played for a fool. I wanted to confront her, but I also knew I had to be smart. If I went in angry and impulsive, I'd lose all control. I needed a plan, something calculated. But first I had to figure out what I was really up against. Who else knew? Was this just a one-time thing, or was there a pattern? I couldn't trust her anymore, not just because she lied, but because she was capable of doing something so hurtful and reckless. I got up slowly, the room feeling too small, too suffocating. My hands were shaking and my stomach was a knot. I knew this was only the beginning. I had to decide what I was going to do next, whether to let her go, or to make her regret every second she ever thought she could cheat and get away with it. As I looked around the apartment, I realized I'd been living in a bubble. Things were about to change, and I was the only one who could make sure I came out of this stronger. But how? That's what I was trying to figure out, staring at the door that I knew would lead to the inevitable confrontation. I didn't want to be naive anymore. I didn't want to keep pretending everything was okay. I just wanted the truth, and I was ready to get it. The question was, how far was I willing to go to get it? After that night, my mind was a tornado of thoughts and emotions. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face in that hotel photo, the way her lips curled into that smug little smile. I was furious, but I also knew I had to be careful. Whatever I did next, it had to be calculated. I couldn't afford to act impulsively and blow everything up without thinking through the fallout. The first thing I did was go through her phone. I figured if I was going to catch her in more lies or find out what else she'd been hiding, I had to look at her messages, her calls, her emails. I sat there for hours, trembling at every buzz, feeling like I was invading her privacy, but also knowing that she'd crossed a line I'd never thought she would. When I finally found her chat logs, what I saw made me want to vomit. There were messages between her and Michael, flirty, suggestive, downright disgusting at times. They'd been talking for weeks, planning secret meetups, exchanging private jokes that made me sick just reading them. I saw her admit to feeling alive when she was with him, how she enjoyed the thrill of sneaking around. That wasn't just a one-night stand. It was something more, something deeply rooted. I closed the phone door hard behind me, feeling the rage bubble up. She lied about everything, her career, her friends, even our relationship. She'd been living a double life right under my nose. I had to get out of that apartment, clear my head. I grabbed my coat, stepped outside into the cold air, and took a walk around the block. I needed space, clarity. While walking, I replayed it all: her smile at the wedding, her excuses, her promises that she'd always be honest. Lies. I'd trusted her with everything and she'd thrown it all away. I started thinking about revenge, but I also knew I had to be smart. I didn't want to just hurt her. I wanted her to feel what I was feeling, to understand she'd crossed a line that couldn't be erased. Back home, I began to draft my plan. It wasn't just about catching her. It was about making her realize she'd made a terrible mistake. I wanted her to suffer in a way that would make her regret ever betraying me. I decided I'd gather more evidence, photos, recordings if I could manage, and then confront her not with anger but with undeniable proof. I was going to make her see that I knew everything. Next, I started to think about her work. She was a manager at a pretty big company, well liked, or so I thought. If I could find a way to leak her secrets, her lies, her infidelity, maybe I could ruin her professionally too. I wasn't going to send her to jail or anything, but I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable like I had. And then there was the final step. If she thought I was just going to walk away without a fight, she was dead wrong. I wasn't just going to leave her, I was going to make her regret ever messing with me. I'd spent years building a life with her, and now I was about to dismantle it brick by brick, without her even seeing it coming. But first, I needed to wait for the right moment. I knew she'd be home soon, probably expecting me to be broken or accepting. That wasn't going to happen, not this time. I sat there, feeling that familiar surge of determination. All I had to do was stay patient, plan my moves carefully, and wait for her to slip up again. When she did, I'd be ready. I looked at my phone, scrolling through her contact list. I wasn't going to accuse her outright, at least not yet. I wanted her to feel cornered. I wanted her to realize that I knew the truth and that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. That's when I decided. She'd see just how much I'd uncovered, how far I was willing to go, and how much I was willing to fight for myself. The next step, well, I'd keep digging, keep collecting, and wait for her to make a mistake, because I knew she would. The worst liars always slip up when they think they're safe, and I was going to be ready to catch her. Everything was about to change, I could feel it, and I wasn't going to stop until I made damn sure she paid for what she'd done. Over the next few days, I kept my nerve. I played it cool on the surface, but inside I was on high alert. Every little detail about her schedule, her phone, her behavior, I scrutinized it all. I needed to be careful. I knew she had a habit of pretending everything was fine until it was too late. She wasn't stupid. If she sensed I was onto her, she'd clamp down, cover her tracks even better. No, I had to be patient, sneaky even. One afternoon, she came home earlier than usual. I could tell she was nervous, maybe because she sensed I was acting differently. Her eyes flicked around the apartment, avoiding mine, her voice a little too high when she asked, "How was your day?" I just looked at her, silent, and let her sweat it out. I didn't need to say a word just yet. I had enough evidence now, enough leverage. She made herself a cup of coffee, and I watched her with a cold stare. That's when I saw it. Her hand was trembling slightly as she reached for her phone. I saw her glance at it quickly, then hide it in her purse. A small, obvious tell, but enough to confirm I was right about her hiding things. I knew she was up to something, but I didn't say anything. Instead, I waited for the right moment. That evening, I decided to confront her, but not directly. I wanted her to slip up again, to reveal more. I started casually bringing up her recent meetings, her late nights, asking questions she couldn't easily dodge. She stiffened every time I mentioned her work, her voice a little too quick to change the subject. I could see the tension mounting, and I knew I was close. Later, I found her in the bedroom, pretending to fold laundry, but her eyes darted nervously to her phone. I stepped closer and said, "You know, I've been noticing some odd things lately. Like that late-night call last night. Who were you talking to?" Her face paled for a split second, then she forced a laugh. "Just work stuff, relax, you're paranoid." I leaned in, voice steady but cold. "I'm not paranoid, I've seen enough to know something going on. If there's something you need to tell me, now's the time." She blinked hard, then looked away. That was all the confirmation I needed that she'd been hiding something. I had her backed into a corner, and I could feel my plan coming together. I wasn't just going to confront her, I was going to make her regret all her lies. I decided I'd wait a little longer. Let her stew, let her think she's getting away with it. Then I'd turn the tables. I was gathering every piece of dirt I could find, more screenshots, maybe even record her if I could. I wanted her to see that I was serious, that I'd caught her red-handed. This wasn't some petty argument, it was the end of the line. But the best part, I knew I'd have leverage, I'd threat. To expose her, not just to me but to her boss, her professional reputation, that would cut her deeper than any words. I wanted her to know she'd gone too far, and I was going to make her regret it for the rest of her life. I started drafting a message, one that would make her realize I wasn't going anywhere. It would be short, sharp, and to the point. Something like, "We need to talk, you've lied enough." Simple, direct, devastating. I wasn't going to give her any room for denial. The night came, and I knew this was it. I set everything in motion. I wanted her to think she was still in control, that she could pretend everything was fine. But I'd be ready to strike when she least expected it. I could almost feel the tension crackling in the air, waiting for her next move. And when she made that move, I'd be there to catch her, expose her, and finally take back what she'd tried to ruin. Because at this point, I was done playing nice. I was done pretending. It was war, and I was ready to win. That night I sat in the dim glow of my laptop, the screen flickering with the latest evidence I'd collected. Photos, messages, a few voice recordings, enough to blow her whole world apart if I decided to go that route. But I wasn't there yet. No, I wanted her to believe she still had some control, some power. I wanted her to make the first mistake, to reveal herself further. Since I knew she was planning to leave for a business trip, the next day I figured I'd make my move then. Until that point, I kept things as normal as possible. She was tense, I was tense. Our conversations carried that awkward undercurrent, like something unsaid was looming just beneath the surface. Every glance, every word felt loaded, but I wasn't just waiting around. I devised a plan to confront her, but with a twist. I'd make her believe she still had the upper hand, like I was just another guy who didn't know her secrets. I sent her a text. "We need to talk when you get back. It's important." Nothing more. I watched her read it and saw her stiffen just a little, her fingers hesitating over her phone before she responded with a quick "okay." That night I went over every detail in my head, how to approach her, what to say. I knew she'd try to deny everything, spin some story to save herself. But I also knew she'd slip up again. She was too sloppy, too nervous. The key was to make her prove she was guilty without me shouting accusations. And so I waited. The morning came fast. I watched her pack her bag, her hands trembling slightly as she stuffed her phone deep into her purse. She looked at me with that forced smile, the one that meant she was pretending to be calm. I kept my face neutral, a strange mixture of anger and cold calculation swirling inside me. "Have a good trip," I said, trying to sound casual even as my stomach twisted. She nodded, mumbling her thanks. I watched her walk out the door, feeling the weight of the moment sinking in. This was the last time she'd leave without knowing I was onto her. As soon as she was gone, I sprung into action. I logged onto her email, checked her location history, and started to piece together her whereabouts while she was away. I wanted every detail: who she talked to, where she was, what she was doing. My mind raced with possibilities. Was she meeting Michael again? Was she planning her next move? I found a few suspicious emails from her boss. Nothing explicit, but enough to confirm they'd been in contact. I also found a couple of photos she'd uploaded to her social media, guilty little posts hinting at a getaway with someone. Definitely not a work trip. My blood boiled. While she was gone, I also set up a little surprise for her. Nothing destructive, just enough to make her realize she'd been caught. I printed out the screenshots of her messages, the hotel receipt, the photos she'd posted, and made a small collage. I slipped it into an envelope along with a short note. "Found these. Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" It felt good to finally put all the pieces together. The plan was simple: wait until she returned, then confront her face to face with undeniable proof. I wanted her to see that I knew everything, that she couldn't hide from me anymore. I was going to make her face the consequences of her actions. When she finally called me that evening, I answered calmly. "Hey," I said, my voice even. "I've been doing some digging. I think we both know what's really going on." There was silence on the other end. Then she mumbled, "What are you talking about?" I pressed, "You can lie, but I've got the evidence. The hotel, the messages, the photos. You've been playing with fire, and I'm not going to let you get away with it." Her voice cracked slightly. "It's not what you think, I swear." "No," I cut her off. "You've been cheating on me with Michael, and I have everything right here." Her breathing became shallow. "Please don't do this. I was just confused. It didn't mean anything." That's when I realized she thought I was going to be broken, devastated, but I was done feeling hurt. I was furious, yes, but also calm, dangerously calm. I told her I wanted her to come home, that we needed to talk seriously. She hesitated, then agreed. I hung up knowing I had her cornered. It was only a matter of hours before the truth would come out face to face. The game was on, and I could feel that familiar sense of purpose growing stronger. I wasn't going to let her walk away, not without consequences. The next chapter was about to begin. When she finally walked through the door that evening, I could see the tension in her shoulders. Her face was pale, her eyes darted around nervously like a trapped animal. I didn't say a word at first. I just watched her, arms crossed, feeling that thrill of control starting to take over. "You went quiet," she finally muttered, trying to sound casual, but her voice trembled. "I thought maybe you backed down." I stepped closer slowly. "You thought I wouldn't find out, that I'd never see the truth in your lies." My voice was steady but cold as ice. "I've got everything, you know. The hotel, the messages, the photos. You really thought you could hide this forever." Her face crumpled slightly, her eyes narrowing just a bit. "That's not fair." "I didn't mean for it to happen." "Save it," I interrupted. "You cheated, you lied, right before we were supposed to get married. Do you even understand what you've done?" Her mouth opened, then closed again. She looked like she wanted to say more but couldn't. I could see the tears threatening to spill, but I wasn't feeling sorry for her, not anymore. "I want to hear it," I said, voice sharper now. "Tell me everything. How long was this going on?" She hesitated, then finally whispered, "A few months. I didn't know how to tell you. I was scared, okay?" "Scared?" I scoffed. "You were sneaking around, lying to my face, and you call that scared? Do you even realize what you've cost me, do you?" She looked down, trembling, her hands clenched into fists. "I made a mistake. I didn't mean for it to ruin us." I took a step back, pulling the envelope from my pocket and holding it out. "Yeah, well, maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to betray me. I've got proof, everything, and I'm not going to keep pretending I didn't see what you did." She reached out, tears finally spilling over. "Please don't do this. We can fix it. I love you." "Love?" I cut her off sharply. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. You would have cheated behind my back, lied to my face, and made a fool out of me." Her shoulders sagged. She looked defeated, broken even, but I wasn't done. I wanted her to see that I'd made up my mind. "I've made my decision," I said. "I'm done. Done with the lies, the betrayal, the pretending everything's okay. You had your chance to be honest, and you threw it away." Her voice cracked as she begged, "Please, just give me another chance. I swear I'll fix this. I'll do anything," but I shook my head. "No. There's nothing left to fix. Not after this. I want my key back, the one to our place, and I want you out." She looked like I just punched her in the stomach. She reached for her purse, fumbling for the keys, her hands trembling more than ever. When she finally handed them over, I felt that final piece of control settle into my grip. "You're making a mistake," she whispered, voice barely audible. I looked her straight in the eye, feeling nothing but cold resolve. "No, I'm making sure I never get played again. This is the end." I took the keys from her hand, then turned to leave. As I slipped them into my pocket, I realized I felt free for the first time in days. The pain still stung, but it was a different kind, one that came from finally taking control, from ending a betrayal that had almost broken me. Walking out that door, I knew I'd done what I had to do. No more lies, no more secrets, just a clean break. And a hard lesson learned: never ignore the warning signs. Because sometimes love isn't enough to save you from the truth. As I shut the door behind me, I promised myself I'd start rebuilding, better, wiser, and more careful. Because the biggest lesson of all was that revenge isn't just about hurting someone else, it's about reclaiming your own life. and I was finally doing that. A few days after she left, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. The house was silent, almost too quiet. No more hurried footsteps, no more whispered lies. I spent those days clearing out her stuff, throwing away the souvenirs of a relationship I'd thought was real. It was painful, like peeling off a scab that had been holding everything together, but I knew I had to do it. I went to the local office and handed over the keys to her apartment. I didn't say much, just a simple exchange of documents and a polite, cold goodbye. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd lost, her home, her life with me. I didn't need to shout or scream. Justice, I decided, was in the quiet, decisive acts. Later that week, I filed for divorce. It was straightforward, no dramatic show, no emotional breakdowns. Just the facts. I handed over the paperwork, signed, sealed, and delivered. My lawyer told me it would be finalized in a few weeks. I didn't feel victorious, more like I'd finally taken a breath after drowning in betrayal. But I knew one thing: I wouldn't be fooled again. In the weeks that followed, I started to rebuild my life. I focused on work, caught up with friends, and slowly the pain began to dull. I didn't dwell on her anymore. I refused to give her the power to keep hurting me. Instead, I used that energy to push forward, stronger and more cautious. Every morning now, I wake up thankful for the clarity, thankful I saw through the lies before it was too late. I learned that trust is fragile, and sometimes you have to cut your losses to save yourself. I also learned that revenge isn't about destruction. It's about reclaiming your dignity, your sense of self. I don't regret what I did. I don't regret standing my ground. Looking back, I realized that this experience, brutal as it was, made me better. It taught me to listen to my instincts, to recognize the warning signs, and most importantly, to never ignore what my gut was telling me. Because in the end, honesty and loyalty are what truly matter. And if someone betrays that, they forfeit their right to your trust. So to anyone in a similar situation, trust your instincts, gather your proof, and don't be afraid to walk away. Because no matter how much you love someone, if they're capable of that level of betrayal, they don't deserve your future. Protect yourself, stand firm, and never let anyone strip you of your dignity. And for me, the road ahead is clear. I'm moving forward, leaving the betrayal behind. A fresh start begins with a choice to be stronger, wiser, and more cautious. I'll never forget what happened, but I refuse to live in its shadow. The best revenge was always reclaiming my peace, and that's exactly what I've done.